Picture this, if you can bear it, your sanctuary, your place of creation, the very heart of your passion, deliberately, maliciously defiled. Imagine your state-of-the-art outdoor kitchen, a space where you conjure magic with fire and spice, suddenly looking like a city dump, overflowing with rotting garbage, dirty diapers, and God knows what else, all courtesy of your friendly neighborhood HOA president. And if that's not enough, imagine her screeching through a megaphone that your life's work, your art, is pollution, that you are filthy. This wasn't some bizarre nightmare for Reggie Turner. This was just another Tuesday in the prestigious Crestwood Meadows subdivision, presided over by the one and only Mrs. Laura Higgins, a woman whose anemic taste apparently didn't extend beyond boiled chicken and mayonnaise on white bread. Reggie Turner, a man in his early 40s with kind, intelligent eyes and hands that moved with the grace and precision of a seasoned artist, had recently moved into a modest but well-kept home in Crestwood Meadows. He was a private man, seeking a quiet space to experiment, to dream up new culinary masterpieces. His backyard boasted a beautifully designed, professional-grade outdoor kitchen, gleaming stainless steel, a custom-built wood-fired oven, an impressive array of smokers and grills. This was his laboratory, his temple. Here, surrounded by the scent of fresh herbs from his garden and the sizzle of inspiration, Reggie was truly in his element. He wasn't running a business from his home. He was simply a man passionate about food, occasionally cooking for friends, or more often, developing new recipes for projects Laura Higgins couldn't possibly comprehend. But Laura Higgins, HOA president and self-appointed arbiter of all things bland and boring in Crestwood Meadows, had a problem with Reggie. Or rather, she had a problem with the smells emanating from Reggie's yard. Not the smell of, say, a backed-up sewer or a chemical plant, mind you. No, Laura was offended by the tantalizing aromas of slow-smoked brisket, of exotic spices blooming in hot oil, of fresh bread baking in a wood-fired oven. Can you believe it? The woman was offended by joy. It started, as these suburban tyrannies often do, with an official HOA letter, dripping with passive aggression. "Dear Mr. Turner," it read, signed with Laura's spiky, self-important scrawl, "it has come to the board's attention that your outdoor culinary activities are producing persistent and frankly offensive olfactory pollution within our community. Numerous residents have complained about unappetizing ethnic odors and greasy smoke, diminishing their enjoyment of their own properties. You are hereby instructed to cease and desist all outdoor cooking that produces odors deemed disruptive by the HOA." Disruptive? The man was creating magic. Reggie, a man who had charmed Michelin inspectors and faced down an army of stressed-out line cooks, merely raised an eyebrow at the absurdity of it all and continued to cook. This, of course, was an act of outright rebellion in Laura's tiny, power-mad world. So she escalated. Oh, how she escalated. One morning, Reggie walked out to his pristine outdoor kitchen to find it utterly desecrated. Overflowing garbage cans had been tipped over, their vile contents, rotting food, used diapers, slimy, unidentifiable refuse, strewn across his gleaming countertops, his expensive grill, his custom-built oven. It was an act of such petty, calculated malice, it took his breath away. The smell was true pollution. He stood there for a long moment, the shock warring with a rising tide of cold, hard anger. Then, with the methodical calm of a man who has faced far worse, though perhaps not far smellier, he pulled out his phone and began to meticulously document the scene, every disgusting detail. But Laura, dear Laura, was not a creature of subtlety. That afternoon, as Reggie was attempting to clean up the nauseating mess, her voice, amplified by a cheap megaphone, began to blare across the neighborhood. "Attention, Crestwood Meadows. We have a resident, a Mr. Reggie Turner, who insists on polluting our air with his filthy, disgusting cooking. He is turning our beautiful neighborhood into a slum with his grease pit. This man is unsanitary. He is a blight." On and on she went, her voice a shrill, hateful screech, a verbal assault as offensive as the garbage she'd had dumped in his kitchen. And then came the pièce de résistance of her campaign, the social media attack. Laura, or one of her equally charming cronies, filmed Reggie from a distance as he was, understandably, looking stressed and angry while cleaning up the garbage. They edited the footage, adding a sinister filter and dramatic out-of-context sound bites to make him look unhinged. The video was posted to the Crestwood Meadows community Facebook page with the caption, "Illegal food business caught in the act. Unsanitary conditions. Aggressive owner. Is this man even licensed? What is he really cooking in his backyard? Health hazard. Josh, shut down Reggie's. Rot. Rock. Keep Crestwood clean." The comments section, naturally, was a dumpster fire of ignorance and bigotry. "That food smell is disgusting," one chimed in. "Laura is absolutely right. We need to ban him before our property values crash," another wailed. The mob folks was well and truly whipped up. Through all of this, Reggie Turner's outward reaction remained one of almost unnerving composure. He saved every hateful post. He recorded every megaphone tirade. He meticulously collected samples of the garbage dumped in his kitchen, double bagging them with the care of a forensic expert. His neighbors, those who weren't actively participating in Laura's hate fest, either scurried away when they saw him or offered furtive, apologetic glances, clearly too intimidated by Laura to offer any public support. Children, mimicking their parents, sometimes threw stones into his yard when he was outside, shouting, "Stinky food, man!" And Reggie? He'd just make a note of it. His mind, the mind that could deconstruct and reinvent complex flavor profiles, was now deconstructing a very different kind of problem. He made quiet phone calls, his voice low and professional, discussing things like supply chain logistics for the upcoming benefit dinner or scheduling conflicts with the Food Network shoot. He even asked his personal assistant to overnight him the full catering manifest for the governor's ball from last year. Small, almost insignificant details that would mean nothing to the likes of Laura Higgins, but to an observant listener, they hinted at a life, a profession, a level of influence far beyond the borders of Crestwood Meadows. The final official salvo from Laura arrived a week later. Another thick envelope. This one contained a formal HOA demand for Reggie to dismantle his illegal commercial-grade outdoor kitchen within 7 days, cease all offensive cooking activities, and pay a fine of $20,000 for multiple, flagrant violations of community bylaws and public health standards. Failure to comply, the letter thundered, would result in the HOA hiring a sanitation crew to forcibly remove and dispose of the offending structures and materials at his expense, along with initiating immediate legal action. Reggie read the letter, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. A sanitation crew? To dismantle his kitchen? Oh, Laura, 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 you've truly outdone yourself this time. You think you are about to deliver the final blow, to cleanse your precious neighborhood of the filthy cook and his polluting food. You believe you've won. But what you, in your monumental, blissful ignorance, don't realize is that Reggie Turner isn't just planning his next meal. He's meticulously planning your spectacular, multi-course downfall. And it's going to be a feast of pure, unadulterated, 5-star karma. The reservations, darling, are all made. And you're the main course. The official ultimatum from the Crestwood Meadows HOA, delivered with all the self-important flourish Laura Higgins could muster, lay on Reggie Turner's kitchen counter. Dismantle his passion, pay an exorbitant, fabricated fine, or face forcible destruction and further legal action. Many a lesser man would have crumbled, would have raged, would have, perhaps, even packed his bags. But Reggie Turner? Oh, Reggie was not a lesser man. He was a Michelin-starred chef, a culinary architect, a man who understood that the most exquisite dishes, like the most satisfying forms of justice, often required patience, meticulous preparation, and a perfect sense of timing. To Laura Higgins's immense, if temporary, satisfaction, Reggie appeared to comply. Or at least he didn't immediately launch a public counterattack. He sent a very polite, very brief email to the HOA board simply stating, Your communication of date has been received and is under review. I will endeavor to address your concerns by the stipulated deadline. Laura, of course, paraded this email around to her cronies as a sign of Reggie's imminent surrender. See? She crowed at the neighborhood coffee clatch, her voice dripping with triumph. I told you that trash would fold if we just applied enough pressure. He knows he can't win against us. He's probably already packing his greasy pots and pans. The thought of Reggie, defeated, dismantling his beautiful outdoor kitchen brick by brick, filled her with a vindictive glee. She even posted a smug update on the community Facebook page. Victory for Crestwood Meadows. Our firm's stance on community standards is yielding results. Details to follow at our upcoming neighborhood cleanup celebration. Oh, the hubris, folks. The sheer, unadulterated, soon-to-be incinerated hubris. But while Laura was busy preening and planning her victory parade, Reggie Turner was busy with a very different kind of preparation. His days were filled with quiet, focused activity. There were discreet deliveries to his home, not packing boxes, but crates filled with the finest, freshest ingredients imaginable. Exotic spices from the far corners of the globe, prime cuts of aged beef, rare line-caught seafood flown in that morning, cheeses whose pedigrees were older than Crestwood Meadows itself. His phone calls were not to moving companies, but to a select group of purveyors, fellow chefs, and, most tellingly, to the director of City Harvest, one of the largest food charities in the state. Yes, Margaret, he'd murmur into his phone, his voice low and confidential. The charity cook-off is still on for Saturday. My place. Expecting about 50 volunteers from your organization for the tasting and packing. And yes, the Food Network crew confirmed they'll be here to film the segment for the Chef's Give Back special. He even put up a small, professionally printed sign on his front lawn, right next to the HOA's latest threatening notice. It read, Private Charity Culinary Preparation Event for City Harvest. This Saturday. Your patience during this intensive food prep period is appreciated. Laura nearly had an aneurysm when she saw it. A charity event? The nerve. The audacity. She saw it as a final, desperate act of defiance. A pathetic attempt to garner sympathy. She immediately fired off another nasty letter, accusing him of fraudulently using the name of a charity to continue his illegal commercial food operations, and vowing that the HOA-sanctioned cleanup would proceed as scheduled, charity or no charity. She even called city sanitation, trying to get them to condemn his property, but they, after a cursory drive-by, found no violations beyond Laura's perpetually offended sensibilities. The harassment, however, did not cease. If anything, it intensified, fueled by Laura's rage at Reggie's perceived mockery. More trash accidentally found its way into his yard. Anonymous complaints about strange smells and loud chopping noises. Reggie, a master of knife skills, was practically silent, were filed with every conceivable city department. The online smear campaign continued, with new, even more outrageous lies being spread on the community Facebook page. Sources say Turner is actually serving roadkill to that charity. Dr. Danger Food, New York Ducks lock him up. The comments from Laura's supporters were, as you might expect, a delightful gumbo of ignorance and hate. Some neighbors, those who hadn't fully drunk Laura's Kool-Aid, began to look a little uneasy. The sheer relentless vindictiveness of the campaign against Reggie was starting to make even some of the fence-sitters uncomfortable. But Laura Higgins ruled Crestwood Meadows with an iron fist and a velvet glove that occasionally held a megaphone, and few dared to openly question her. Reggie's isolation, in the physical sense, was almost complete. But he wasn't alone. Not really. He had his passion, he had his plan, and he had a team of very expensive, very hungry lawyers just waiting for Laura to make her final, fatal mistake. The night before the HOA's threatened dismantling of his kitchen, Reggie was a blur of controlled, creative energy. His outdoor kitchen, which he had meticulously cleaned after each act of vandalism, was alive with the most incredible aromas. He was slow roasting a whole heritage pig, marinated in a complex blend of Caribbean spices. He was gently simmering a massive paella, fragrant with saffron and seafood. He was baking artisanal breads in his wood-fired oven, their crusts crackling, their scent a warm, inviting embrace. It was a symphony of culinary creation, an act of defiant artistry. He even plated up a small, exquisite dish of his signature smoked duck breast with a cherry reduction and offered it over the fence to his neighbor's young son, Timmy, who had been watching with wide, hungry eyes. Much to Timmy's mother's, a staunch Laura ally, horrified disapproval. Reggie just smiled. The best way to fight hate, he often thought, was with an unexpected act of generosity and truly phenomenal food. Laura Higgins and her husband, on their evening stroll, or more accurately, their neighborhood surveillance patrol, caught a whiff of Reggie's latest creations. Laura's face contorted in disgust. "Can you believe the unmitigated gall of that man?" she hissed to her meek, perpetually browbeaten husband. "Cooking that filth, right in our faces, after everything. Well, tomorrow morning, Mr. Reggie Fancy Pants Turner, your little grease pit is history, and I will be there to personally supervise its demolition." She practically vibrated with vindictive anticipation. The morning of the deadline dawned bright and clear, a beautiful day for a public humiliation, or so Laura Higgins thought. At precisely 9 a.m., a large, noisy city sanitation truck, or rather a private industrial cleanup truck Laura had hired at exorbitant HOA expense, as the actual city wanted nothing to do with her crusade, rumbled to a stop in front of Reggie Turner's house. Laura arrived shortly thereafter, a queen surveying her domain, flanked by her loyal HOA board members, Agnes Periwinkle and Bob Higgins, both looking suitably grim and self-important. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, some gleeful supporters of Laura, cameras ready to capture Reggie's downfall. Others, a few shamefacedly curious, or perhaps, just perhaps, a tiny handful hoping for a miracle. The local cable news van, a rather shabby affair, pulled up. Its reporter, a young man named Skip, who looked like he'd rather be covering a traffic accident, dutifully setting up his camera. Laura, holding a brand new, gleaming crowbar she'd clearly bought just for this occasion, one shudders to think what she intended to do with it, strode purposefully towards Reggie's backyard gate, her adoring fans in tow. This was her moment, her triumph. Reggie Turner stepped out of his back door, dressed not in chef's whites, but in a simple, clean t-shirt and jeans. He looked calm, almost serene. He surveyed the assembled crowd, the sanitation truck, Laura and her crowbar, with an expression that was entirely unreadable. "Well, Mr. Turner," Laura boomed, clearly enjoying herself immensely, "your time is up. As per the final notice from the Crestwood Meadows Homeowners Association, we are here to ensure the immediate dismantling and removal of this unauthorized, unsanitary, and frankly offensive outdoor cooking apparatus." She gestured dramatically with the crowbar towards his beautiful kitchen. "Any last words before my crew here?" She nodded towards the sanitation workers who looked profoundly uncomfortable. "Begins the much-needed neighborhood cleanup?" The crowd, Laura's supporters anyway, tittered with anticipation. This was going to be better than reality TV. Reggie Turner offered a small, polite smile. He stepped forward towards the sanitation crew who were reluctantly shuffling towards his kitchen. "Hold on just a moment, gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but carrying an unexpected note of authority that made them pause. He turned to Laura, then to the assembled crowd. "Before you proceed with dismantling what you so clearly failed to understand or appreciate, wouldn't you perhaps care to try a small sample of what I was preparing for today's charity event? It's my latest creation, a little something I like to call justice served hot, with a side of infused humility." He gestured with an almost theatrical flourish towards a beautifully arranged platter on one of his stainless steel countertops, laden with the most exquisitely plated, incredibly aromatic culinary delights imaginable. Laura Higgins stared at the food, then back at Reggie, her face a mask of contempt. "Are you insane?" she shrieked. "You think we're going to eat your garbage? After all the trouble you've caused? Men, dismantle this health hazard, now!" The sanitation workers exchanged uneasy glances, their eyes lingering on the platter of food that smelled frankly divine. But before they could take another step, before Laura could unleash her crowbar-wielding fury, Reggie Turner simply raised his hand again. "Just one more thing, Mrs. Higgins," he said, that same almost dangerous smile playing on his lips. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his smartphone. "You mentioned my little charity event being a fraud, and my food being garbage?" He tapped the screen. "Perhaps you and your audience might be interested in a slightly more professional opinion." He turned the phone around, its screen facing the crowd, and pressed play. The theme music was instantly recognizable. The host's smiling face, a beloved national icon. The Food Network logo gleaming in the corner. The tension in Reggie Turner's backyard was suddenly so thick, you could have spread it on an artisanal, wood-fired crostini, and it was about to get a whole lot thicker. Laura Higgins stared at Reggie Turner, her face a mask of utter contempt. The crowbar still clutched in her hand like some bizarre scepter of suburban tyranny. "Are you clinically insane, Turner?" she shrieked, her voice cracking with indignation. "You think we're going to sample your garbage after all the filth and disruption you've brought to this community? Men," she gestured imperiously to the hesitant sanitation crew, "dismantle this monument to public nuisance. Now." The sanitation workers, who frankly looked like they'd rather be anywhere else, especially after catching a whiff of the incredible aromas wafting from Reggie's platters, took a reluctant step forward. But before they could lay a hand on his gleaming stainless steel, Reggie Turner simply raised his smartphone, a small, almost dangerous smile playing on his lips. "Just one moment, Mrs. Higgins," he said, his voice calm, yet carrying an authority that made even Laura pause. "You seem to be under the impression that my culinary endeavors are amateurish, perhaps even illegal." He tapped the screen of his phone. "You mentioned my charity event being a fraud, and my food being garbage. I believe a slightly more professional opinion is in order." And then from a surprisingly powerful, professional-grade portable Bluetooth speaker that Reggie had discreetly placed on one of his prep tables, came the sound. Not an argument, not a plea, but the instantly recognizable, upbeat, and very famous theme music of Global Gourmet, the Food Network's highest-rated culinary travel and celebrity chef show. The crowd murmured, confused. Laura's eyes narrowed. What trick was this now? Then came the voice, the rich, unmistakable baritone of celebrity chef and television host, Antonio Bellini. "Welcome back to Global Gourmet, folks. And today, we have an extraordinary treat. I'm here in the stunning backyard oasis of a true culinary legend, a man whose innovative cuisine has earned him multiple Michelin stars across 3 continents. The one, the only, the phenomenal chef, Reggie Turner." On Reggie's phone screen, which he now casually swiveled around for Laura, her cronies, and the utterly bewildered sanitation crew to see, was indeed Antonio Bellini, looking dapper and enthusiastic. And standing beside him in that very same outdoor kitchen, dressed in pristine chef whites, looking every bit the culinary superstar he was Reggie Turner himself. The video clip showed Reggie expertly demonstrating a complex knife technique, then presenting an exquisite-looking dish to a clearly enraptured Bellini. "Reggie, my friend," Bellini's voice boomed from the speaker, "this dish you've prepared for the City Harvest Chefs Give Back charity cook-off tomorrow. It's not just food, it's poetry. Our viewers are in for a global exclusive when this airs next month." The effect on the assembled crowd was, well, electrifying doesn't quite cover it. The sanitation crew froze mid-step, their jaws agape, eyes wide with dawning comprehension. The neighbors who had come to jeer and witness Reggie's humiliation stared, dumbfounded. Skip, the local cable news reporter, nearly dropped his camera, his eyes bugging out. And Laura Higgins? Oh, poor, delusional Laura. Her face went through a truly spectacular series of transformations, from furious red to confused purple, to a ghastly mottled "I'm about to throw up" green, finally settling on a chalky, corpse-like white. The crowbar clattered from her suddenly nerveless fingers, landing with a dull thud on Reggie's immaculate patio stones. You could almost hear the sound of her tiny, prejudiced world imploding. It was, in a word, magnificent. Reggie Turner let the Food Network clip play for another 30 seconds, just to let the reality sink in, then calmly paused it. He looked directly at Laura Higgins, whose mouth was now opening and closing like a beached carp. "That segment, Mrs. Higgins," he said, his voice still quiet but now resonating with an authority that could level mountains, "was filmed here in this very kitchen yesterday afternoon for the City Harvest Chefs Give Back annual fundraiser. This kitchen," he gestured gracefully to his beautiful professional-grade setup, "which you, in your infinite wisdom, have declared a health hazard and are so eager to dismantle with a sanitation crew, was, in fact, about to prepare 500 gourmet, nutritious meals for the city's homeless shelters. The olfactory pollution you've been so vociferously complaining about, those, madam, were the aromas of charity, of compassion, of world-class cuisine being created for those most in need. Something your palate, I fear, is entirely unequipped to appreciate." "And speaking of dismantling things," Reggie continued, his eyes now glinting with a steely righteous fire, "you've done a rather impressive job of attempting to dismantle my property, my professional reputation, and my peace of mind. As if summoned by a perfectly timed director's cue, because let's face it, this entire scenario was playing out like a blockbuster movie script. Several sleek, black sedans pulled up silently at the curb. Out stepped a team of about 6 individuals who looked like they just walked off the set of a high-powered legal drama. Impeccably dressed, carrying expensive leather briefcases, they radiated an aura of, 'We don't just win cases, we annihilate them.' This was Reggie Turner's legal team, led by the legendary Evelyn Roth, a woman known in legal circles as the Barracuda for her ferocious courtroom style and her uncanny ability to make billionaires tremble. And with them, a fresh wave of real news reporters, photographers with flashing cameras, and TV crews from every major national network, all tipped off by Reggie's very efficient PR team about an internationally renowned Michelin-starred chef and philanthropist facing a shocking campaign of discriminatory harassment and vandalism while preparing for a major charity event. "Oh, Laura, darling, your 15 minutes of fame have arrived. And honey, it's not a flattering light." Evelyn Roth, a vision in a power suit that probably cost more than Laura's annual HOA budget, strode forward, her gaze fixed on a now visibly hyperventilating Laura Higgins. "Mrs. Laura Higgins, Agnes Periwinkle, Robert Higgins, and other esteemed members of the Crestwood Meadows Homeowners Association Board." Her voice was like silk wrapped around a shard of ice. "You are hereby served." Her team moved with terrifying efficiency, distributing thick, intimidating stacks of legal documents to Laura and her trembling cronies. "This," Miss Roth announced, her voice carrying clearly to the assembled news cameras, "is a multi-million-dollar federal lawsuit filed by our client, Chef Reginald Reggie Turner, for defamation, slander, libel, intentional infliction of severe emotional distress, conspiracy to commit vandalism, malicious destruction of property, violations of the Fair Housing Act, and multiple egregious breaches of his civil rights." She paused, letting the weight of the charges sink in. "We have irrefutable evidence, including extensive high-definition video and audio recordings from Chef Turner's own comprehensive security systems, meticulously documenting a targeted, systematic, and racially motivated campaign of harassment, verbal abuse, property destruction, and a malicious, concerted effort to destroy his professional reputation and sabotage his significant charitable endeavors, all orchestrated and personally led by Mrs. Laura Higgins and key members of this homeowners association." Laura Higgins, faced with the A-list lawyers, the national news media, the crushing public weight of her own monumental stupidity and bigotry, and the undeniable evidence of her crimes, let out a sound that could only be described as a strangled squawk. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she dramatically, spectacularly fainted, collapsing in an ungraceful, undignified heap on Reggie's, soon-to-be world-famous, lawn. Her cronies, Agnes and Bob, looked like they wished the earth would open up and swallow them whole. The sanitation crew, wisely, had already begun to discreetly back their truck away. Even Skip, the local cable guy, was now filming with a newfound, almost religious fervor. This was the big leagues. The aftermath, as you can imagine, was a culinary-grade karmic feast. The lawsuit was a national sensation. Reggie Turner, the beloved Michelin chef, versus the HOA Karen from hell. The media couldn't get enough of it. Reggie's security footage of Laura's rants, the trash kitchen, the neighbors' hateful online comments, it all played out on a global stage. The Crestwood Meadows HOA was, of course, bankrupted almost instantly, forced into receivership. Laura Higgins, personally named and liable for a significant portion of the damages, lost everything. Her house, her savings, her carefully constructed facade of suburban respectability, all gone. That charming little video she'd posted slandering Reggie and his filthy cooking? Oh, it went viral all right. But this time it was intercut with footage of her fainting on Reggie's lawn, of her tearful, incoherent no comments as she fled reporters, of her home being foreclosed. It garnered something in the neighborhood of 45 million views, under titles like Michelin Chef Serves HOA Karen a multi-million-dollar dish of instant karma. She became an international meme, the poster child for entitled bigotry getting its just desserts. She couldn't get hired to flip burgers, let alone dictate community standards. Reggie Turner, with characteristic class, donated his entire multi-million-dollar settlement from the lawsuit to City Harvest and a newly established fund to support aspiring chefs from underprivileged backgrounds. And then he did something even more magnificent. He bought the dilapidated strip mall at the edge of Crestwood Meadows, a notorious eyesore Laura Higgins had been trying to get demolished for years, and transformed it. In its place rose the Turner Charity Restaurant, a taste of justice. It was a beautiful, welcoming, fine dining establishment that served gourmet, nutritious meals to the city's homeless and food-insecure population, with dignity and respect, completely free of charge. It also functioned as a world-class culinary training center for at-risk youth, mentored by Reggie himself and his network of celebrity chef friends. The one rather delicious rule: no member of the former Crestwood Meadows HOA board that had persecuted him, nor anyone clearly identified as having actively participated in the harassment, was ever, under any circumstances, allowed to dine there or benefit from its programs. Some entrees, it seemed, were permanently off their menu. Reggie also, at the urging of his publisher, released a new cookbook, Justice on a Plate: Recipes for Resilience, Redemption, and Really Good Ribs. It was filled with his most famous dishes, interspersed with inspirational and subtly, hilariously damning anecdotes about his adventures in Crestwood Meadows and his philosophy on how good food, like good karma, always finds a way to nourish the soul. It became an instant international bestseller, selling millions, with all proceeds, naturally, going to food charities. The grand opening of the Turner Charity Restaurant was a star-studded, joyful event, covered live by the Food Network and every major news outlet. Reggie, in his crisp chef whites, looking like culinary royalty, beamed as he cut the ceremonial ribbon, surrounded by grateful community members, his smiling culinary apprentices, and a constellation of celebrity chefs who had flown in to support him. And what of our dear Laura Higgins? Well, the final poignant scene, captured by a paparazzo with a long lens and a taste for ironic justice, showed her months later. She was in a stained, ill-fitting uniform and a greasy hairnet, miserably, clumsily, washing a mountain of dirty dishes in the steamy, chaotic kitchen of a run-down, third-rate roadside diner. The kind of place whose primary culinary achievement was probably not giving its patrons food poisoning. The diner's small, flickering TV, mounted in a corner, was tuned to a rerun of Reggie Turner's award-winning Chef's Give Back special, his smiling, benevolent face filling the screen as he demonstrated how to perfectly sear a scallop. Laura saw it. A single greasy tear traced a path through the grime on her cheek. She dropped a stack of plates with a resounding crash, earning a harsh, bellowed reprimand from her new, heavily tattooed and deeply unimpressed boss. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, from HOA queen to queen of the scullery. It almost makes you want to, order a side of fries just to watch her work. Reggie Turner, perhaps in an interview for his best-selling cookbook or at the restaurant opening, offered the final, perfect thought. Food, he'd say, a warm smile gracing his lips, is about passion. It's about creativity. It's about sharing the very best of ourselves with others. When someone tries to destroy that passion, tries to label your art as pollution out of sheer ignorance or petty hate, you don't just get angry, you cook. You create something even more beautiful, even more nourishing. You build a bigger table. You show them that justice, like the most perfectly balanced, exquisitely flavored dish, always leaves a lasting and very, very satisfying taste. The final shot, the gleaming, welcoming sign of the Turner Charity Restaurant. Justice tastes divine. And the audience everywhere erupts in cheers. Comments flood the screen. Chef Reggie for President of the Universe. Laura got flambéed. This is the best karma story I have ever seen. And you know what, folks? They'd be absolutely right.